Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 6th of June, comes to you from London. Dollar recovering a little bit over the last 24 hours, but this week has been a big rout for the dollar, with hints that there will be and the next move in interest rates in the US will be down. So we are just seeing that dollar weakness on that now expected change in US monetary policy. The euro as a result has been stronger this week, but we still do have 4 downside targets hanging over us. And so it does still look like any moves in the dollar to the downside might be short-lived, and the euro will struggle to hold this short-term bullishness. Against the yen, the dollar is looking weaker longer term, and so the yen proving to be the safe haven with a lot that's rattling markets at the moment. We're looking at sterling. It's climbed against that weaker dollar this week as well, but medium and long term still bearish. And against the euro, which is probably the biggest sign for sterling, now we are back into bearish territory, although we're just flat at the moment. Looking at Bitcoin, nudging the $8,000 level. We've been bearish the last few days, just seeing a bit of a sell-off after the recent run in Bitcoin prices, but we are steadying now at around this $8,000 mark, so it would be quite key. Looking at the 60-minute chart, we do have upside targets to 8,100 and 8,600, both activated, so it does look like Bitcoin could climb back to those levels. The S&P 500 index was up another 0.8% last night, so we are seeing a surge returning, not quite into bullish territory yet on the short-term chart, maybe finding support on the medium and long-term charts, but at the moment the markets remain nervous. And the Nasdaq also just hitting on the lagging line on the daily, just finding support there on the lagging line, but a move below this low that we've just seen this week would of course take us into bearish territory on the medium term chart, so we need to watch out for any new lows on the Nasdaq. Looking at the Dow, we are much the same, bouncing on the cloud. New lows here would be bad, so this needs to be a low point to avoid further big sell-offs in the market. Looking at the Russell 2000 index, we are sitting at 1506, and we're bearish still on that medium-term trend, and again just maybe looking at support on the lagging line, but the Russell 2000 index has really struggled to get back to levels seen last year, so we have seen relatively weak performance in the smaller caps, which is not surprising. Looking at the S&P future, we're very slightly up this morning, and the Nasdaq E-mini also very slightly up. Not enough to really give a heads up as to which way the US will open and go today. The UK market is up 0.2%, but still pretty bearish, and the long-term chart remaining bearish as well, and the FTSE Mid 250 also looking pretty bearish as well. In Germany, the market is virtually unchanged this morning, and the CAC Quarante also virtually unchanged, so not big moves there. Japanese market was down 0.3%, stronger yen not helping stocks there, and looking at the Hang Seng, we were just slightly up. China more badly hit at down 1.7%, taking us to new lows there on China, lows seen not since February, so quite interesting there that we are seeing 3 and 4 month lows on the Chinese market having hit that resistance level and falling away, so we're not out of the woods. We've got some quite big downside targets still hanging over us, some 20% lower, so China is still a concern. The Sensex market in India was down 0.8%, but the chart's still looking very, very strong. And the S&P Australian index up 0.4%. Brent crude is up 0.2% this morning, but below $61. Still bearish. Downside targets now to 57 activated. That'd be a further 6% downside. And WTI sitting at $51.81 this morning. Clearly into bearish territory now on crude, so we shouldn't be surprised to see further falls there. US nat gas sitting at $2.37, so we are seeing again big moves to the downside here. just really in the doldrums, and we're seeing now US nat gas at levels we haven't seen in years, so it's looking pretty bearish. Downside targets below $2, so very tough indeed. Gold still remaining strong at $1,333, spiked quite heavily yesterday. We're above 1340 there at one stage. We've got a new upside target of 1434. That's 7.6% upside. If we hit those levels, that's a break for gold. And we see here from the lagging line, it's increasingly looking like gold will break to the upside now. So really interesting that we are starting to see gold run, and silver also looking quite strong there. US 10-year yields have been in the doldrums. We're now sitting at 2.12%, a little bit of a recovery above that 2.1% level, but looking like it will be short-lived. We've got targets to 201, 203, 208, so it does look like we're going lower. Taking a look at the individual stocks now, we start by looking at the Dow. Fairly strong performance last night. Cisco was up 2.8%. Microsoft was up 2.2%. Looking still very strong, the Microsoft chart. On the downside, we did have DuPont's down 2%, so we are still seeing some quite big moves there. And Walgreens was down 1.4%. They've had a pretty weak start as well. Taking a look at the Nasdaq 100, we ranking just by performance here. We had American Airlines down up 4%. They were the strong performer last night. We've seen it pretty much most stocks going up quite sharply. Micron Technology were the worst performer, down 3.3%. The Aussie market is looking here. We see we've got the best performer was WiseTech up 5%, and the worst performer Ausdrill down 6.7%, and that chart looking pretty weak indeed. So we are just seeing there. China also was down heavily as we saw, so a lot of red in the screen on the Chinese market. In India, the Nifty 50, the best performer was Asia Paints. They were up 1.7%. Chart looking relatively good on the long-term chart. On the downside, we had GAL India down 9%, so that's a really big fall there. And then we see the live prices coming in from Yahoo Finance. Taking a look at the UK market, we have Glencore up 1.13%, so that's looking quite a lot better there. So on the downside, we've got Sainsbury's down 3.7%. Interesting, Hargreaves Lansdown has been a big mover on this Woodford story, and we see here, yes, this week has been a terrible week for Hargreaves Lansdown shares, giving up all their outperformance really this week. So that's rocked the share price there. Looking at the mid-caps in the UK, we've got Entertainment One. They're up 16%. And on the downside, we've got Bakkavor all down 5%. Also, did just notice the Woodford trust there. We could have a quick look at that. So we saw here Woodford Patient Capital Trust. They've obviously had a lot of volatility in the last few days. Taking a look at the European market, we have ING as the best performer, up 1.2% this morning, and then on the downside, Orange Group down 1.7%. So a mixed picture in Europe, but mostly up this morning. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.